Kelvin, do you think it's one-sided too?
In Nigerian policy and all of that, is there really freedom of information? As in, whatever is happening, that the Nigerian government is liable to let the public know about what is going on. If the answer is yes, then those people that are caught red-handed, in this corruption scheme and whatsoever, then, like Ayomi said, if somebody is caught, we should know what happened to that person at the end of the day. Not just that, oh, somebody was caught and 2 weeks later they don't hear anything about that person anymore, or somebody was caught doing something wrong, and at the end of the day we don't know the end story. So if there's freedom of information, that the Nigerian government is accountable to the people, then if those people are caught, let's know what happened to them. If they are sentenced to jail or anything, I mean, let's just know what happened to them at the end of the day. If that is not happening, then we say it's one-sided. All those are part of the corruption, bribing and corruption. Somebody is caught looting money, and at the end of the day, we don't know what happened to it, to that person. So, on that note, I would say yes, it's a one-sided story.
All right, but sometimes it seems all the attention is on the public sector. What about the private sector? Is the private sector clean?
Well, if you look at the private sector, I can't say we are actually living a corrupt-free environment. We could look at the banking sector and look at how decisions are made. Remember, corruption is actually tilting decision and tailoring decisions around a particular, you're not doing it for, for instance, you come to my office and I decide to recruit somebody I'm close to because I recruited, not because of skills. That's absolutely corruption itself. And really, why that is happening in the society? If you look at it closely, to actually just explain it in clear terms, if you look at the financial systems, of course, the Security and Exchange Commission should be responsible to ensure that there's very limited corruption case itself in terms of manipulation within the stock market. But really, if you look at the antecedents, what has happened the last 2 years, we've actually not seen anything clear. If you go on the street of Lagos and you see interaction with the police, really, you could look at the police and say, okay, police is actually in the private sector. But really, for the private organization using this police, how do they use them? And to what benefit do they use them? If you go deep into the banking system and begin to look at the administration of funds that are actually public funds, it's actually not owned by the banks itself. And you ask yourself, how are loans disbursed? Who are the beneficiaries of these loans? It will shock you to know that less than 100 people account for virtually all loans in Nigeria. And you begin to ask questions. Where did criteria actually followed before these loans are disbursed? So really it cuts across even that. If you look at examination malpractices itself within our schooling system, and you ask yourself simple questions. Within this schooling system itself, our policies, our process actually adhere to. And that takes us to the question, do we really as a people do deep down analysis, deep down audit about how our process have been adhered to?
Ayomide, how can Nigeria start this? You are in the private sector. How do you think you can kickstart this transparency process?
Okay, I think the first step should also should be making what we do transparent. For example, we're saying that the government is not transparent enough. That is because they're not releasing what ought to be made public. So for private organizations too, we also should be able to make what we do public. I mean, everybody should know what we do. It's not like we're an organized cult group or something. There should be like a lay down process that shows the public in clear terms what we do, so that it will be easy for our service we are service providers, the people that we provide services to question us and to say, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? It will be easy for us to say, well, this is why we do this. So the first point of call is make everything that we do that is supposed to be public, even as private companies.
Atiku, what should we start with?
I think number one, every profession in the world, every profession, and when I talk about profession, I'm talking about close to about 1,000, I think 1,843 that people will classify. They have the divine in clear terms, written white and black, what an ethical and unethical conduct is. I think it's from that that we begin to pull out what corruption really means. In Nigeria, we don't really know what is ethical and what is unethical. So the first starting point for us as people is actually to pull that down white and black. This is an ethical conduct, this is unethical. Then based on that, beyond, of course, the opinions that would actually draw out in public domain of this one is corrupt, this one is corrupt, this one is corrupt, it's based on that ethical conduct, even within the public sector, the private sector, that will now begin to divine what corruption really did. Who is corrupt? If you actually, corruption doesn't necessarily mean stealing money. For instance, I run down to an hospital, and the next thing I see this massive barrier in front of me. And of course, life is lost. That's because I'm taking an unethical decision at that point in time. People are dying. I think that's the biggest level of corruption. It's not necessarily about stealing money that everybody focus on. So I think the first thing for us to do as people is actually to look closely at what is ethical and what is not ethical and begin to teach it. Of course, even if possible, from nursery school. That's how it's done in the world. From nursery school, you begin to teach what is ethical and what is not ethical. We can't leave it only to the religious body. Of course, in Nigeria, we always profess to be religious. I think that's, of course, it's in the churches, the mosques, and then, of course, maybe the shrine that they teach you what is ethical and not ethical. Ideally, for a society that is looking to move on, we should start teaching that from the school, from nursery school. That's number one. Number two itself, it's not enough to actually begin to punish. Fear is one good thing, but people overcome fear. Of course, I pick up somebody on the street because he's corrupt, and I put him to court, I put him to jail. Yeah, to one level, it could affect some people, but we are 176 million people, 186. We are not even sure what our population looks like anyway. We need to go beyond that. We need to prevent corruption from happening. The road signs must be on ground. It's not about somebody hiding somewhere, trying to pick somebody because he wants to benefit from it. Let's put the road sign. If you take this road, you are wrong. Let it be written white and black. It's not that you hide the road sign. So the same thing across every policy position, across the economy. Of course, private sector, organized private sector, the disorganized, or how do we call it now, the non-organized private sector, the public service. It should be written there. We should have postcards everywhere showing this is what you should take. For taking this decision, this is what happens. For not taking this decision, this is what happened.
All right. Thank you, Kelvin, Ayomide, and Atiku for being a part of this hangout session.